We're going to talk about Americans and whether or not they care about our civil liberties being violated by the Obama administration. Let's take a look.
What I wanted to see is if you could give me a yes or no answer to the question, does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
Now, of course, that was James Clapper lying in front of the Senate about whether or not Americans are having their private information collected. And Ron Wyden asked him very clearly, are you collecting information on Americans? And he said no. He lied under oath. However, he will face no consequences for doing so. At the same time, we have Edward Snowden, who is going to be extradited, possibly back to the United States, where he will probably be tortured by our officials. And he didn't lie to us. He told us the truth about what's happening to our civil liberties and to our privacy. Desi, I want to start off with you. Isn't this something that Americans should really be up in arms about, when in reality it seems like they either don't know about it or don't seem to care about it?
Well, absolutely. I think Americans should be up in arms about it. But, you know, it's difficult for people to care about something that they don't know about. And what we have discovered through Edward Snowden's leaking of the NSA's surveillance activities, we've discovered that this is just the tip of the iceberg of this massive secret surveillance state. Other whistleblowers and other former NSA officials have come out and said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is much more going on that people would care about if they knew about it. And I think part of it also at work here is the corporate media. You know, they're not really reporting on it. They're reporting what the government tells them. They can't get access to what's going on about this. But, you know, when you have your media not covering these issues, or the media only covering the more sensational aspects of it, they're playing, you know, where in the world is Edward Snowden, instead of actually covering the substance of these allegations. I think people would care if they knew.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that now the corporate media is obsessed with character assassination as opposed to the information that was leaked to us. And for some reason, people are very quick to forget about the fact that Edward Snowden gave a lot up just to share that information with us. He had a cushy job in Hawaii with a hot girlfriend. Okay, he's living the life. I mean, he dropped out of high school, yet he had this great life, and he was willing to let all of that go to basically live in an airport in Russia and not know what his future holds. It's a complete and utter disaster.
Yeah, it drives me crazy that they don't see this kid as a hero, a true American hero, willing to risk everything of the American dream, really, in order to save us from our own government. And it drives me crazy watching the mainstream media discussing, is it Iceland, is it Venezuela, is it this, is it that? It's like, this is not the topic, people. You know, but I think people are terrified. They want to know that they're going to be safe. They want to know that the government's going to take care of them like their daddy or their mommy. And so they are willing to kind of put their head in the sand about this stuff.
You know, well, if we can jump back to the video for a second, you know, there's a great episode of Seinfeld when they're saying, you know, the more you're lying when you're talking to someone, the higher up on your face that you touch. And if you watch that video, Clapper is scratching the top of his head because he knows he's lying. He's flat out lying. So forgetting the Snowden stuff for a second, he should be, I mean, he's perjured himself, absolutely, and as you said before, he's not going to suffer at all because of it. And so this is actually hurting our systemic ability to govern also, because it's not just the leak, but now it's showing that you can also lie under oath and that there's going to be no repercussions.
Well, and you know he was lying because he used an interesting adverb, wittingly.
Wittingly.
Like, what exactly does that mean? Is it that they don't know, but they don't know in a way that's humorful?
Right,
I don't know.
Did he mean
what
willingly?
The hell does that mean?
And also keep in mind that he had time to prepare that answer. Senator Wyden had given him the questions that he would have to face ahead of time, and he was also given the ability to edit what he had to say afterwards. Which is incredible that, you know, you can censor yourself, you can edit yourself and make sure that you can lie, but you can do so in a way where you don't have to face consequences, because many you know, political scholars have noted that it's actually possible that he won't face consequences because someone has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he lied and he knew he was lying. Wow. But the way that he worded it made it difficult to prove that.
Right, exactly. Wittingly. And you know what? When you're lying, a good way to do is hunch over the desk and you touch the top of your head and, well, wittingly, I was witting. Right, but these are the silly little games. Like he knew, and then he placed a word in there just to deny the truth. Yep. And that's what we're dealing with. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Now I want to give you guys some facts and figures that I found incredible. Huffington Post and YouGov did a poll of Americans to figure out whether or not they felt that that Edward Snowden did the right thing. And here are the numbers. According to the new poll, 38% of Americans think that Snowden, a former contractor for the National Security Agency, did the wrong thing, while 33% said he did the right thing. Still, 29% of Americans remain unsure about Snowden's actions. And then you look at Democrats and Republicans specifically. Democrats said that Snowden did the wrong thing by a 46% to 26% margin. And of course, the reason why they're not in favor of it is because, oh, it makes the Obama administration look bad. We like to play partisan politics. We don't like to hold our politicians accountable. And you know, when it comes to Republicans, it's a similar thing. They're divided 37% to 37% on whether Snowden did the right thing in the previous poll. But in the latest poll, 44% to 29% margin saying that he did the wrong thing. So they're basically all agreeing, like he did the wrong thing. And that was his #1 fear, that he was going to risk everything in his life and Americans wouldn't care, which they don't, and that people would think that he did the wrong thing, when in reality, we need whistleblowers. We need to know what's happening within our government to hold these officials accountable.
But I think that's what's remarkable to me about this entire revelation that Edward Snowden has brought to us, is that it is definitely along partisan political lines. It is almost a Rorschach test. People see what they want to see. You know, if they were against it when the Bush administration did it, but they're okay when the Obama administration did it, that's, you know, intellectually inconsistent with, you know, actual ideology and actual, I don't know, consistent principles of constitutional law.
Your personal morality,
yes,
even. Yes.
It actually can violate that as well. So it's been fascinating to see this struggle between, is he a hero, is he a traitor, shooting the messenger, shooting the reporters that are revealing all of this information. I mean, obviously some secrets need to be kept secret, you know, for national security, but the rest of this is really fascinating to see, even within the political left, the folks that are against each other and are fighting and saying, well, you know, this hurts the Obama administration, and the other one saying, wait a second, this is about what's right and wrong.
Exactly.
But you know, this is partly because we live in such a bipolar society where he's either a hero or a traitor. That's it.
Yep.
There's really no room for anything else
There's
besides
your-
hero or traitor. You know,
roles.
can't possibly be anything else. But you know, there's a great video on YouTube, not that I want anyone to click away for a moment, of Sean Hannity, a compilation of him when Bush was president, saying that we have to have data mining and we have to protect everything, and now, of course, because Obama's president, doing the complete opposite. So that's also part of the problem, that again, our news sources are just force-feeding partisan stuff instead of having any honest debate.
You know, and I'm also wondering, is it that also that Americans are so exhausted by the economy and the fear of the future that we only have so much space in our psyche to handle big things that we have to think about, and it's like, oh, we're just trying to get through the day, and I'm trying to keep my job or trying to find a job, and now I have to think about this too.
Absolutely. I think it's really a combination of things. I mean, Americans have so much to worry about right now. We personally live in our little media bubbles where this is our lifeline. Like, this is what we focus on day in and day out. But for the majority of Americans, I mean, they're consumed with their families, with their jobs, just making ends meet. And so I do understand that it's difficult to pay close attention to issues like this and to hold politicians accountable. But I mean, that's the whole point of a democracy. You need political activism. You need Americans to get perfect information, which they are not getting because of corporate media. But hey, we have the emergence of new media, and if you really want to stay informed, you can do it. And I just want this political apathy to end in this country. We really need an uprising, and I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about, you know, civil disobedience to actually make change in this country.
Well, I think it was a lot easier though when we were fighting fascism instead of terrorism. I think because this is a fascist state we're talking about, or we're a slippery slope towards that. And I don't think people really remember the fear of that and what that is. I think we all have to, you know, read 1984 and all those great Russian authors and remember what we're talking about here, what it means to live in a police state. I don't think America has a history or memory of that right now.
Also, who is it that said that fascism's going to come with a big smiley face?
Yes.
Somebody said that.
I believe that was my father.
Was it your? No, was it really? It might have. Wow.
Actually.
That shows how much I love your father. But you know, that's the thing, because the left especially is so constantly enamored by Obama and everything that he does, they're afraid to step up and say you can't do this stuff. And because he has the smiley face, we still want to like him. I think that's, you know, if you just watch your Twitter feed, it's like people that I know that are intellectually honest still don't want to attack him because there's this feeling of, he's probably a nice guy, so I don't want to,
It's terrible. I actually want to focus on Republicans for a minute, because Republicans like to claim that they're in favor of small government. Yet when it comes to the NSA leak and when it comes to national security, they actually seem to love big government, right? Yes. They love the idea of the Obama administration or the Bush administration keeping the country safe, when in reality, we know that these tactics do not keep the country safe. I mean, when you look at drone attacks, they actually create a lot of hostility toward the United States, which probably inspires people to do terrorism to this country and to the people of this country. But what is it about these programs, these government programs for national security, that Republicans are in favor of, but then they're not in favor of things like, I don't know, social services for the poor? Dave.
I mean, this goes to the heart of everything that's wrong with the Republican Party. They want government so small that it can fit in a woman's uterus on one hand, so they can control that, and then which probably would hurt. And then at the same time, they want to control every little part of every, you know, the minutia of your day. So it just goes to their intellectual dishonesty and the fact that they're right now there's no party anymore. They're just this big thing that's kind of running against doing anything.
Well, I'll tell you what I think they're very consistent on is the military-industrial complex. So if it helps the military industry, if it helps industry, industrial suppliers of the military, then they are in favor of it. And they're extremely consistent across all subjects on that. So I don't think it has anything to do with the substance.
Too, in a way, because even now with this whole Egypt thing, everybody already is saying we have to keep funding the military. I mean, there was just a coup. They're afraid of saying it's a coup because that may stop some of the money flow. Right. And it's all about keeping the military going and keep that whole thing funded.
And there's something about, like, we're doing something about terrorism. See, we're trying to track them. It's a tangible, looking busy kind of a thing, whereas diplomacy and connection and being good neighbors and having goodwill in the world, that's too mamby-pamby. We don't know how to do that thing. So there's something.
Canada? Yeah, I thought of Canada.
There's something like, there's something very concrete about that I think Republicans feel good about, or that kind of thinking. It's not necessarily Republicans, but that kind of mindset.